Hello, guys, and welcome to the Mado Videos podcast by Guch. Today we have Redis Labs Senior Technical Marketing Manager, uh, Doug Tidwell, with us. Doug is a veteran in the industry, having spent over 3 decades. He's got so much to share. I've had a chat with him before, and I just couldn't. Uh, think of passing this opportunity to get him on board for this episode. We'll be talking a lot about video evangelism because that's what he's done primarily for uh, most of his career, having spent time at various organizations like Red Hat, CloudBees, IBM, and he's right now with Redis Labs. Again, without much ado, I'd like to add Doug to the podcast and get started.
Hello,
Hi,
thanks
Doug.
for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for taking time out and joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you on board. From the time we got in touch till
Right.
now, it's been such a great experience learning already from you, and I hope we discover a lot of additional things to learn from you as we speak today.
I hope so.
Awesome. So before we get started, I think I haven't done justice to introducing you on the podcast. So I'd like you to give me a brief introduction about yourself, a little bit about your background, and what your role at Redis Lab is.
Okay, sure. I have been an evangelist for most of my career. When I started, obviously that was long before the days of COVID. I was in the room with you. I was on the stage. I was speaking at user groups, whatever audience made sense. And as time went by, travel dollars became scarce, and I moved into a role where I didn't travel very much at all. So I had these presentation skills that I had honed over a long period of time, and said, okay, I've got to find some way to use these skills, and video was the obvious way to do that. So I do. Well, before the pandemic, anyway, I did travel. I did speak occasionally, but by far most of my work has been in front of a camera like this. So I have had to learn different techniques. Obviously my audience here is a camera. There's a teleprompter. I'm making eye contact with the teleprompter. My dog may be in the room. That's about it. I don't have an audience to interact with. So it has taken some time to really get comfortable with that. In terms of my role at Redis Labs, I have only been there a short time, but I'm very, very excited about the company, its products, its trajectory in the marketplace. And my job there is to produce content that shows people how to use our products in what most people would think of as a non-traditional way. Redis, most people think of Redis as a cache for their database. It's great at that. We have massive market share in that part of the industry. But what we're trying to do is show all the other things that Redis can do with amazing performance and scalability. So my job is to create videos and other types of multimedia content to help people understand what they can do with our product and how to make the most of
Right. So I think that leads me to this question that I ask every guest of ours who comes on the podcast. That is, why is Doug mad over videos? Why do you love videos so much?
it. I love it because it's just it's such a chance to really craft things, to do things exactly the way that I want to do them. In a presentation, a lot of things can go wrong, especially if you're demoing live code. The network can go down, your code can crash. There are a lot of things that you don't have much control over. Whereas with a video, I can do everything exactly the way I want it. So, if I don't like a particular take, or my voice didn't sound right, or I mispronounce them, whatever, I can go back and fix that and make everything as close to perfect as I want. And there's also a lot of creative things that I can do on video that you really can't do on a stage. We talked earlier. We've done skits, we've done all sorts of humorous videos, and those are things that really wouldn't work in front of a live audience. So that's why I like it. And again, during the time of the pandemic, if you're a presenter, this is what you have to do. So I'm blessed to have these skills at this point in my career, to be able to still reach out and communicate with people through this medium.
Right. A major part of your career has been into evangelizing technology, right?
Right.
I'd like to dive a little bit into that. What does it take to be an evangelist? What are the top 3 or 5 things that come to your mind when it comes to skills or the mindset that is needed to be a good evangelist or a great evangelist?
Right. Well, I think there's several things. To me, the most important is to be approachable. I have seen speakers who feel like their job is to convince everyone they're the smartest person in the room. Okay, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm the only person in the room. What I want you to feel, if you're in the audience, I want you to look at me and what I'm doing and think to yourself, oh, I could do that. Okay, now it's probably a lot more complicated than it seems, but a big part of evangelism is convincing people this product or technology is real and you can do great things with it right now. So to me, that's a real key. Another thing that's important, you'd think it would be obvious, but so many people miss it, is to be as clear and simple as you possibly can. I have a master's degree in computer science, but I have a bachelor's degree in English. And when I was getting my English degree, I wrote papers all the time, and it forced me to learn how to distill ideas down and convey them very simply and concisely. That's vital if you're an evangelist. And the other thing to me is to respect the cynicism that I believe most developers have. We've all been in the software business for a while now. Every few minutes, somebody comes up with a new framework or a new product or a new technology. That's the greatest thing ever. And 5 minutes from now, there'll be another new thing that's the greatest thing ever. So developers, I think, have been told many, many times, here's something that's worth your time. It's worth your time to learn this language, this framework, this product. And every developer I know, myself included, has been burned by that. Okay, I saw that technology, I invested a lot of time in it, and then it turned out it didn't go anywhere in the marketplace. So I think it's important to show people the value of learning what it is that you're selling. Again, whether it's a technology or a product, I want to convince you that if you invest the time in learning what I'm selling, you're going to be more productive, you're going to be more innovative and creative, you're going to have a real advantage over your peers and your competitors.
Absolutely. Now that you talked about it, you just mentioned that you've been used to being in rooms where you have real people around you, and in the situation that we are in today, you're doing all the same things, but sitting in front of a camera with a teleprompter and your dogs as well.
Right,
But then,
right.
I think I'd like to know how different is it? Like what? I mean, it's of course different. Like what goes on in your mind? Like how do you keep the same level of interest and also ensure that you deliver with the same amount of passion when it comes to being on stage and in front of the camera?
Yeah, one of the things is passion and energy. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. That is vital. If I'm just sitting here reading on a teleprompter, I mean, that's boring. If I look like I'm not having a good time, the audience is not going to stick around. So, again, that comes directly from the work that I did on stage. I am enthusiastic about whatever I'm talking about. This is the greatest product ever. you people out there are the greatest audience ever. I'm just thrilled to be, I mean, you need to project that kind of energy, and you have to do the same thing on camera. It's different, of course, because you can't really feed off the audience. If I'm really projecting to an audience, people respond to that. That's great. Here, again, the camera, it doesn't respond. It just sits there and records me. So, that's an important thing. You have to have that energy. Also, we'll talk about humor as we go. I have had to learn that with humor, you almost have to hide it in some ways. Just do something and move on. If you're in front of an audience, you may do something funny and the audience laughs. Okay, that's great. Pause for a minute, let people stop laughing, and then move on to the next thing. Obviously, I don't get that, in front of a camera. I will say something or do something that I think is funny, but I can't wait. Yeah. Just keep going and keep projecting energy as you go.
True. Like you said, I think I want to take this example that most people give this tip when it comes to like being a speaker on stage. If you're not comfortable, I'm not sure if a lot of people might agree here, but then there's a thing that they say that imagine that your audience is naked, and then you get comfortable with the whole idea of now I can speak to these guys. I mean, a lot of people do follow this, and I've spoken to a bunch of people who come from this school of thought. But I don't know what is something that you follow when it comes to making yourself comfortable in front of the camera.
It's a weird mix. I am a complete introvert, but I love to be on stage. So I have never had a problem being comfortable. To me, the main thing is I do not envision anything negative happening whatsoever. Obviously, I know, especially if I'm doing a live demo, something may go wrong, but I just envision this is going to be great. Everything is going to work. I'm going to be clear. I'm going to be persuasive, precise. The audience is going to love me. This is just going to be the greatest presentation ever. That's the way that I think. That's the mindset I have when I walk out on stage. And again, I try to have that same confidence when I sit down in front of a camera and turn on the lights. This is going to be a great video. People are going to watch this. They're going to tell their friends. It's going to get a great audience. It's going to really make a difference in the marketplace. To me, you have to think positive. And, if thinking of a room of naked people is positive for you, well, if that works, that's great.
I don't go by that, but then I think this is something that I've captured after talking to a lot of speakers. I mean, first-time speakers, especially, who've been given this advice, but feel free to take it or leave it. For right. Those who are watching, I do not subscribe by that notion. So, right. That said, you just brought out the point of humor. I'd like to throw an image on the screen right now of you recording a video for the audiences of Mad-Over Videos, announcing that you'll be on the podcast. And this is what it looks like. So please tell me your obsession. So for those who might not know this is a narwhal hat. Narwhal or narwhal is a mid-sized tooth mammal, right? It's a whale, and like I was shocked when like Doug decided to record a video wearing a narwhal hat and sending it my way. Please tell me what's your obsession with this hat.
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, we talked about not taking yourself too seriously. If you're wearing a narwhal hat, it's pretty obvious you're not taking yourself too seriously. But where that came from, I was at a DevOps conference, and what we were promoting was a new book called The Unicorn Project by Gene Kim. It's an excellent book. If you care about DevOps, you should definitely check it out. But I just thought, everybody's going to be there with a unicorn hat. Why not a narwhal hat? It has one horn like a unicorn, except it's real. So that was just sort of where I started. And then I became known as the guy with the narwhal hat. So it just sort of stuck. And, like I say, if you see me wearing a narwhal hat, it's pretty obvious we're not going to have a dry, boring, very serious discussion. We're going to have some fun while we're talking about technology.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as I saw that video hit my inbox after you recorded that, and I was like, "This is going to be a fun conversation," and I have someone who's definitely going to be fun to talk to. So, and it's going the same way. I'm really happy that this conversation is not bound by a tight agenda or anything, and I love it when it is this way.
Right, right.
So that said, when you talk to developers, that's been your primary audience for most of your career, right?
But, yeah, for most of my career, and you have to do things differently for other audiences. If I'm talking to the CTO or the CEO, if I'm talking to an analyst, I'm not wearing the narwhal hat. I'm assuming you're really busy. I'm lucky to get 15 minutes of your time. We're going to go straight to the pitch. There's not going to be any nonsense. Yeah. And again, that's one of the reasons I love talking to developers, is that they have a great sense of humor and can really respond to that.
True, true. That's it. I mean, like you brought out a very interesting point that like yourself, many others also typically get into the mindset that when you see a person in a suit, he's going to be a different person than your average consumer. He's going to be dead serious, and he might not enjoy humor. And then you sort of get like I don't know, you sort of tweak your mode of communication. You start getting more serious, and oftentimes it's not true. The person on the other side is equally interesting and loves maybe a light note. So
Right.
I think it's important to also take that call intelligently, I would say, by
Yes.
judging who's the audience.
Yes. Yes. And what I always do in front of a live audience is I will start with some little thing that's kind of humorous and just see how the audience reacts. Again, if I'm in the C-suite and nobody cracks a smile, okay, that's the last joke we're going to hear today. But like you say, there are a lot of people. I've had times where the CTO is having a lousy day, and a little bit of humor is really welcome. So, it's that's the thing about being in person. You can judge your audience and respond to them. In front of a camera, it's not the same.
True. Speaking of being funny on video, there's a video that I'd like to play that's called Bad Speaker Tips. And you can tell me a little bit more after I play the video about it.
Okay,
so
sure.
Goes.
Hello, this is Evil Doug Tidwell for CloudBees with some tips for DevOps World speakers. If you're evil like me, there's nothing you enjoy more than inflicting pain on your audience. They'll come to you for your expertise and your compelling subject matter, but with these simple tips, they'll stagger away in pain and misery. Okay, let's get started.
Yeah. And I know, like my mom, for example, my mom is surprised that I get paid for doing stuff like that. This is just a character that came out of some skits I did at CloudBees. The evil Doug character, that was basically just it's a very cartoonish character. What I put that together for speakers at DevOps World, which this year, of course, was a virtual conference. Everybody was making videos for the first time, so we put together. I guess I would say some of it was important tips. Some of it is my pet peeves. There are things like the ceiling fan. It drives me crazy when I'm hearing an expert give a really good presentation, but the ceiling fan is overhead flashing on the video. Things like that. So it's with the humor, it's silly. It's very important to me not to be sarcastic, not to be mean, but along with the bad advice for how to annoy your audience, there's also all the good advice. This is what you should do. Oh, sure, you could have good lighting, but it's a lot more annoying if you stand in front of a bright window, things like that. So it's humorous. It's something people enjoyed, but it also conveys all the information we wanted to convey. So, that could have just been, use good lighting, use a good microphone. Thanks for stopping by. But it was more fun to to give the reverse advice, making it obvious what you should be doing.
Absolutely. I think that said, it takes me to the point of not going the traditional route, and this a lot of brands get caught up in this. They take their audience very seriously, more than they should, and
Right.
end up basing the video that they come up for their product based on those personas. Whereas, like you said, if you're getting the gift of your audience's time, you need to use it very judiciously. So
Yeah.
most of the times, if you could entertain them for those a minute or two, I think that is going to be that's going to leave a everlasting this thing impression on their minds, and there's going to be higher chances that they recall your brand when they actually have a need. Because most of the times when you're selling uh, uh, like to cold customers, it's most of the times it's the case that they do not have a need like for your product. But then oftentimes when they actually do, the only ones that they get back to are the people that they remember and the brands that they
Exactly.
remember. So
Exactly.
with that said, I think why do you think it's important to take non-traditional examples and break the whole idea of showing the exact same persona that they are targeting? Because it's boring. Because
Yeah.
like I'm a developer. I don't want to see another developer's day in life, because I
Right.
know how it is.
Right. Well, I think there are a couple of things. There are a couple of dangers in going with the traditional persona. The first, obviously, is that maybe the traditional persona is just boring. The second thing is that if I try to write an example application of handling a mortgage, okay, I'm not a mortgage banker. I don't know how it works. If you are a mortgage banker, you're going to look at my example. You're going to be distracted because I'm doing things wrong. Instead of paying attention to what I'm trying to the message I'm trying to get across, you're thinking, oh, you would never process an application that way. That's just wrong. So to me, when you use a non-traditional example, you're taking people, how to put this, you're getting people to think about their problems from a different perspective. And one of the examples I did when I was at IBM, we built a chatbot with the Watson Conversation Service, which was really cool. It had a great natural language processing engine, could make inferences. It was cool technology, still is cool technology. But what I did was I wrote a chatbot that was a valet for Pharaoh Ramses II, who died roughly 3,500 years ago. And what the king did, he loved to have a feast or build a monument to himself or start a war. So the chatbot's job was to figure out what the king wanted to do today and get all the details it needed to make plans for the king. Okay, totally silly example. Okay, nobody is doing that in the real world. But what we focused on was this chatbot needs to be smart enough to only ask the minimum number of questions. So if the king says, I'm really hungry today, okay, we know the king wants to have a feast. He's not going to have a war. He's not going to build a monument to himself. And I showed lots of techniques, lots of advanced techniques to reduce the number of questions and make better inferences in your chatbot. That's what people remember. And again, when you start down this road of it's a chatbot for someone who died 3,500 years ago, people disconnect from the normal way they think about problems and start looking at it differently. Because what they're looking at is, we have the same issue. We need to not ask our users annoying questions with our chatbot. So it really worked out well. And, I got some really gratifying emails where people said, we had this problem. We couldn't figure out how to reduce the number of questions. We couldn't figure out how to avoid this situation. your example showed us exactly how to do it. So it was not, it was an example that had absolutely nothing to do with anything any sane, rational person would ever do, but it showed you lots of techniques, lots of ways to use the technology to solve problems, and that was a really effective way of getting that message across.
True. So I think this is probably the best example that I've seen when it comes to like explaining what to do and what not in your onboarding or lead capture stage of any product for that matter. And this is thank you so much for breaking this up, because this sparks some ideas for our own marketing initiatives. So I'm going to take a note of that. And
great.
at the same time, there's another example that comes to my mind when you bring this up, is a video from a brand called Airtable. Again, Airtable is a task management SaaS tool in the cloud, where you can organize all your tasks and ensure that you have a smooth collaboration across teams. But again, the approach that I really like that they took, and I'm going to show that video after we talk about it, is not by showing a team of developers and product managers and marketeers or whatever. They took the route that everybody could relate to. Again, a very non-traditional example. And I think without talking about it, if I show it directly on the screen, I think you guys will be able to relate more to it. So here goes that take video.
Okay, great.
When you're making a movie like this, there's a million things to keep track of. Characters, scenes, plot points,
the equipment, the location, the filming permits,
actors, headshots, egos. Between you and me, this picture was really on the skids. My ideas were maybe a little too ambitious.
Hey, sweetie, making a movie?
Oh, go away! I don't have time for this!
But then we started using Airtable. It's a tool that lets you organize anything. A wedding, a company, an empire, whatever. We're using it for our movie.
Glormax is my follow-up for my movie Reservoir Puppies.
I use it to stay on top of the inventory. I attach photos of everything, and they're automatically stored in the cloud.
I'm sorry for all the gross things I did to your universe.
Apology accepted, Glormax, eater of worlds.
Let's roll one. Airtable, organize anything you can imagine.
All right, pictures up, rolling.
And action.
That was fantastic. I have not seen that before. I love that.
I'm sure even if you weren't aware of the product, this video is going to put a smile on your face.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean,
yeah.
It's the best thing you could do. I think now you have this registered, and next time, even if you don't remember the brand, you're still going to remember that there were kids in the video. They were trying to do a fictional movie that didn't exist, and that's something that you would go and search, and then you would discover the product. And that's the best way you would, I think, you would already be like your intent to buy would be really high from that brand.
Right. Yeah, that's a great example of doing something, doing something outside the box. I hate that phrase, but you could have just said, we're a busy office of grown-ups and we can't keep track of what we're doing. Okay, fine. I mean, that's not interesting, but this commercial was hilarious and entertaining.
You bet. So next thing that I want to talk about, again, it's very important that you pick non-traditional examples like these that will leave a mark on your audience. But at the same time, when your product is complicated and with most advanced technologies and security systems, etc., like especially if you are a founder who comes from the tech background, or if you're talking about the product marketer who is more closer to the product than the audience, it's bound to happen that you get caught up in the bias of having built the product, right? So you feel so strongly about the tech stack that you have, or the security systems in place, if it's a sensitive product, and oftentimes then not, you will end up like talking in a language that your audience might not really connect to. So I want to know what are things that you need to keep in mind in order to like get your messaging right when it comes to communicating very complicated ideas in a very compelling and clear manner.
Right. Well, to me, the main thing is I am a big fan of demos. So we've got a product. Again, this gets back to my developer background. I'm cynical. You tell me your product's great. Show me that your product is great. That's what I want to see. So what I found, and I have found this in lots of places that I have worked, lots of organizations, is that when you try to make something simple, to say, all right, we're going to start here and we need to get there. And let me show you how quickly and easily you can do that. As you try to put that demo together, you will find a number of places where things are just unnecessarily complex. And part of your job, in my opinion, as an evangelist, is to push back on the product team. It's just to say, okay, we've got a situation here where you're asking me to enter two pieces of information, but if you know the first piece of information, you can figure out the second one. So take the second piece of information out of the product altogether. Just use it internally, but don't make the user have to think about that. You know, you'll find lots of situations like that where you really need to push back, you know, on the product team to basically be an advocate for your audience, to make life simpler for them. In terms of terminology, that can be a tough one, you know, because the marketing department tends to be a little closer to product development. Product development and marketing will say these are competitive differentiators, and that's valuable information. Yes, show us how we're better than the competition. But that doesn't mean those are going to be equally valuable to the audience. So, you know, that's where I have really leaned on the sales force over the years, because those are the people standing up in the boardroom in front of the customer. And when they say, we have feature X, and the customer says, we couldn't care less about feature X, okay, that's really good for me to know as I'm putting together my demo. I'm not going to show feature X if I can help it. So, you know, having that feedback and just the interaction with marketing, with sales, and with product development, to me, that's just vital. And if you do things well, and, you know, to me, this is one of the most gratifying things about making videos, is when development comes to me and says, wow, we've never seen the product work that well. Okay. That's a sign you did your job really well, when you made something seem very simple and compelling. You know, developers tend to see all of the difficult work behind the scenes that a customer is not going to see. So when you can show everybody, including product development, this is how simple this can be, that's fantastic. And when you do that, you earn the trust of those other organizations. You know, they will have faith in you to get the messaging right and to emphasize the things that are really important.
True. You being in the intersection of product and marketing, I think you've spent enough time writing code yourself and marketing products both. I think this question goes right up your alley, right? I want to know, how does a programmer or a developer look at marketing initiatives? I think in many organizations, it becomes very hard to convince the product teams or the technology teams to participate in activities like these, like whether it comes to uh, making a video commercial, it could be an offline activation for your product or things like that. It could be that they wouldn't care a lot about it because they're more bothered about how the product is going to be and how it's going to function and what's the pipeline like, and they oftentimes do not bother to contribute. But then I don't think these activities or marketing in general is not the job of only the marketers hired in the company, but then it's the job of everybody in the company. So
Right.
I want to know what's the perspective like.
There are a couple of things. One is for developers, it's an unpleasant truth, but no one cares that you added a new feature to the product. Hey, I worked really hard on this feature. If that feature doesn't do anything useful for me, I don't care. I'm sorry. I love you. Good work. Nice job on the feature, but it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't make me reach for my wallet. And it can be difficult to, you have to be diplomatic in saying to development, we understand this new feature was difficult to write, but it doesn't resonate in the field. So we're not going to talk about it. It doesn't matter how hard you worked on it or how difficult it was to get it working. So I think that's part of it, in that there can be some friction there. If we added 10 new features to the product, we've got 10 things we need to talk about in every message. No, you don't. You may have 2 or 3 things to talk about, or those 10 features, they may enable 4 use cases. Talk about the 4 use cases, not the features. So that can be, a source of tension sometimes, because, development, this is my code. I worked on it really hard. I'm proud of it. I understand that pride of ownership, but that doesn't mean it necessarily belongs in a marketing message. The other thing that I've tried to do in my career is I want my videos to seem like I'm having a great time. I want the audience to say, boy, those people at Redis Labs, they make great products, but they seem to be having a great time doing it. I have a really warm feeling about that organization. That's sort of what I want to come across. And as you do that, if you're having fun in your videos, or at least if you look like you're having fun in your videos, you can start recruiting developers and other folks to be part of your videos. So, we did sketches, where let's get the lead developer in, give them a role to play. Let's get technical writing in there. Let's get somebody from sales, let's get the whole company involved. And it just becomes a fun thing. Most people kind of like being on camera, kind of like being the center of attention. And to me, that has helped a lot in, again, building that trust across organizations. If you are in a video that I've put together, you're going to watch it. You're going to call your mom. Hey, check out this YouTube video. It's great. And I think that has helped me a lot in just getting other people involved in what can really be a lot of fun if you're doing it the right way.
Absolutely. I think a lot of companies undermine the value of engaging with their own internal stakeholders, that is employees, right? They have like a strong audience inside the company there and there, because if your employees happen to engage with a video that you put out, and they happen to share and spark conversations around it, then of course it's going to spread in their circles and you're going to get that organic reach. But the easiest way to do it is by shelling out dollars on advertising. But then I think organic reach is something that you cannot really fight.
Right.
Word of is possibly the best thing that you could have.
Yeah. I mean, that's it's obviously what you want. It's not automatic. I wish I knew a formula to automatically make something go viral. But to me, having more people involved, more people contributing, that it's not going to guarantee success, but it certainly helps your chances.
True. But I think also, like you said, the participation is something that makes it more valuable. When you have subject matter experts contributing through their time and knowledge in helping shape that video better, the output is of course going to be better. Like
Sure.
the marketing team cannot be the only people that are held responsible for coming out with assets, especially because you're eventually marketing tech products. You need to know, you need to ensure that you put the right message across, and you need to talk about the right things. Again, like you said, both of them have different insights. I think one side the product team is closer to the tech that they've built, and whereas the marketers are closer to the audience. And again, like we said, and I go by this quote that the customers don't end up buying products, but they end up buying outcomes for themselves. So
Exactly.
if you are able to sort of tie them together at the hip, and sort of make a collaborative effort in coming out with the asset, I think it's going to work better than one party doing it over the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I could not agree more. That's very true.
Absolutely. So that said, like I'd like to talk about your experience at Red Hat. I think you've done a lot of long form content, and that involves a lot more storytelling than you could get away with a 10-second video easily. But when you're doing something that is longer than a minute or two, I think you run the risk of losing your audience's attention. So it's very
Yes.
important that you sort of hold them together and keep them engrossed in what you're saying. So
Right.
like what are your tips to look at long form content? Especially today, we see a lot of long form content. In the most common form is a webinar, I would say, that people, I think every other company is doing. And if you look at it from the start of COVID-19, I think there is something what we could call as webinar fatigue, which is creeped in, because
Yeah.
you see every day you see a lot of webinars coming your way, and typically because I would say, for the lack of other words, uh, the whole idea is that they end up being a sales pitch over value creation. For most marketers and sales professionals who've lost the opportunity to have in-person meetings and handshakes, this has
Right.
become the closest way to get to the customers, and they happen to like shove sales pitches down their audience's throats, and it eventually hurts the brand in the long term. So
Right.
what are tips that you would like to give, or learnings from your experiences at Red Hat of creating long-term videos?
Well, there are a couple of things. One is I started out with a story, and I can't believe I've talked this long without using the word story. Story is vital. You know, you mentioned people buying outcomes for themselves. You have to tell that story. Here's how you reach the outcome you want if you work with my product. But what I found at Red Hat, we put together um, a fictional amusement park called Coderland. And what we did was we would create a ride at Coderland. So there would be a roller coaster. And we would have several long form videos. One was just the setup, which would talk about, you know, here at Coderland, we're excited to announce our new ride. And we would talk a little bit about that. There was a lot of humor in there. It set up the stories that would come later. And what I learned there is that had to be something that you could skip, which kind of hurt because that was the most fun video to do of them all. But you know, you can't force someone to watch something that's maybe a little offbeat just to get the technical content that they came for. So what we would do with a ride then, like we had a ride that was all about serverless computing. Okay, that's what you're here for. You're not here because you run an amusement park. You're here because you want to learn more about serverless computing. So we would have in the other videos, you know, more long form content, 7-8 minutes, something like that. We would go into the technology more. One side or one video would be, this is what serverless is all about. And again, we had to have these things stand alone. If you're familiar with serverless, you could skip that video, move on to the next step, you'll be just fine. So it was important to me to learn that, to say this long form content needs to stand on its own. Each piece, even though together they tell a story, you know, if you don't have the time or the interest to watch any particular piece, I still want you to get value out of this. There's still a serverless sample. We still show you how to set up the infrastructure. We show you how to invoke the serverless function, how to deal with the data that comes back from it. Those are all things that I want to know as a developer. And if you're giving me that information, I'll stick around. 7 or 8 minutes is not a lot of time for me to give up if it gives me a solid example that I can build on. But, it's important to keep things moving and never forget that your audience is busy and will not hesitate to, click the tab closed if you're not entertaining. If you're in front of an audience, people tend to stick around out of politeness. I'm here, I guess I'll just stay in the audience. I don't want to seem rude by leaving. With video, no, people will kick you out in 12 seconds if they're not interested in what you're doing.
It's interesting. I think I like to call that phenomenon as being at the mercy of the swipe of the thumb, right?
Yeah.
It used to be a time when people would still think about it 1 or 2 times before they walk out on you out of the room.
Right.
But it became easier when it was about clicking a couple of buttons and closing the tab. And today it's just a matter of one swipe and you're gone.
Right.
So it's important that you sort of value that audience's attention and ensure that you are creating value in return for them to stick on for the whole time.
Right. And I've also found in my experience, when I open a YouTube video in the lower left corner, it tells me how long the video is. And that's one place you have to be really careful with longer form content. If it's 5 minutes, okay, a certain number of people will stick around. If it's 7, okay, you probably lost a few people. If it's 23, wow, this better be great content if I'm going to watch from start to finish. And, like you say, if I get 2 minutes into it and it's not, for whatever reason, maybe the phone rings. I don't know. For whatever reason, I can just click the tab closed and do something else. I won't see the rest of your content.
Yeah. I think we've spoken about getting the duration right in this answer. The next question comes to being consistent when it comes to creating content. And I want you to pick the example of your experience at IBM working on a weekly series of videos called Developer Work Mailback.
Right.
Please tell me more about that series and what it takes to being consistent and consistently putting out great content. Okay, it's not about just uploading another video every week, but a lot of thought goes into it, and what kind of resources that you need, what kind of time that you need to devote for creating a series like that.
Right. Well, there's several things with those videos. We set up, there's a certain opening sequence. There are things that we do every week, and we learn to balance that. If you have too much of that, the intro is too long. Don't spend a minute getting to the point. You need to do that quickly. The other thing is we tried to tie them together. So, we had an episode on containers. The next week, we talked more in depth about Docker. The next week, we talked about deploying that Docker container to Kubernetes. The next week, we talked about Kubernetes secrets. The next week, we talked about Istio. There's a progression there, and, people can follow along. Obviously, if I don't care about Kubernetes, I'm not going to watch a video on Kubernetes, no matter how entertaining it is. But, we tried to tie that together. Each episode stood on its own, but there was also a sequence to it, so that, if I say, join us next week and we'll talk more about containers. Okay, if I care about containers, I'm going to join you next week. I'm going to tune in for that.
Sure. I'd like to play one video and from that series that you could tell me about how you went about making this. So here goes that video.
Hello, this is Doug Tidwell. I was recently sitting in my corner office admiring the scenery through my floor-to-ceiling windows when I received an email from senior architect Tamara Bogdanovich of Massapequa, New York. Tamara writes, Dear Doug, tabs or spaces? Sincerely yours, senior architect Tamara Bogdanovich, Massapequa, New York. Tamara, that's an excellent question. 2 spaces. And we'll see you again soon with another episode of the Developer Works Mailbag.
Yeah, that one was fun. At that point, that was many episodes into the series. We had sort of established that flow.
Yeah.
You know, there's an intro. Yes, there's a little bit of silliness there. I did not have a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, but we quickly got to the point, here's a technical question, and then we're going to use that as a jumping-off point to 5 or 6 minutes of technical content. But with that one, obviously, we just had fun with it. We just said, let's do all the setup of the intro and the outro, but really have only, all I said was 2 spaces, and we're done. So, that was fun. And of course, we got a lot of controversial mail. No, it should be tabs. You don't know what you're doing. Some were less polite than that. But, it was just a fun way to play around with the format that we had put together at that point.
Yeah, it seems to be the unpopular opinion when it comes to using spaces. Again, it's a very internal video that only developers would know possibly. And I think the series called Silicon Valley on HBO also used this.
Yes.
In storyline.
Yes, that actually broke up a relationship on the show, which is hilarious.
That is true. That is true. I think we spoke a lot about your experience and working with brands like Red Hat, IBM, or Redis Labs. What I'd like to also focus on is current trends that you really admire, or things that you are on top of. And one of the things that you mentioned is experimenting with light boards. Right. Again, this is something that you've tried again in one of your previous companies, and I'd like to play that video before we talk about this trend and how you think this is going to help a lot of people who are in the profession of doing demo videos. So here goes the video. So
Yeah,
yes, Doug, you can walk me through this.
Okay, sure. This is me explaining a technical problem. What I'm showing there is people will define a number of systems and they're all completely different. They're all doing the same thing, but they're inconsistent, which causes various problems across an organization. So that's what I'm trying to do there. There's several things that make light boards really difficult. The number one problem for me is I can't use a teleprompter. So I actually have a black wall behind me. I had to paint the wall on the opposite side of the room black as well, because you get too many reflections on the light board. It's distracting. If you had a teleprompter there, I'm not good at memorizing lines. If I want to make 3 points, it's hard for me to get through all 3 points without saying or forgetting one or stuttering as I go. So it takes a lot of time for me anyway, in terms of getting the dialogue to flow nicely, so that it sounds as if I have a script, as if I've memorized something or are reading off a teleprompter. There are a couple of things that I notice people don't necessarily do well. One of them is as I do a light board, I design what I'm going to write on the board. So in that case, what we had is when you're getting started with the technology, there are 2 basic problems. On one side, you've got lots of little servers, each of which is different. On the other side, you've got one big server, which is unreliable. And then, of course, in the middle, was our product, which solved both problems. So it made sense in that instance to draw the diagrams that way. So over here, I've got a certain problem I'm diagramming. Over here, I've got a different problem. And look, here in the middle is the solution. So yeah, in this case, early on, I'm talking about a problem. This is called the Islands of Jenkins problem. Basically, you have a bunch of Jenkins servers in your company, and there's absolutely no consistency, no governance, etc. As the video goes on, there's a monolithic Jenkins server approach on the right. That doesn't work either. And then, of course, the company's product comes in to save the day in the middle. So it's important to sort of draw out exactly how you're going to build on the diagram. Another thing that people forget is give yourself space to look at the camera. So I can write stuff in front of my face and then stand there. It's hard to see me because there's writing between me and the camera. So, you have to think about leave a little spot on the board that's unmarked that you can look through at the camera. But the main thing is this is an adaptation of what we call chalk talks. So those were typically very intimate. So this is a problem we see a lot of people having. Is this an issue for your organization? Well, yes, it is, Doug. Okay. And then we go on and, I will tailor what I'm drawing to that discussion. And this, I think, is a good way to connect with an audience over video because I'm doing the same sort of thing. I'm drawing these pictures out the way I would draw them out if I was in the room with you. There are, in addition to the teleprompter, it can be difficult to write without squeaking. If you mess up a section, you have to be able to erase everything you wrote during that section, then go back and refilm it. It's just from a production perspective, it's a much more difficult thing to do than a regular video. But I think it can be really effective. The other thing I'll say, and I did not figure this out myself, when I started watching them, at first I thought everybody was writing backwards. And then I thought, okay, no, everybody's left-handed. What you do is you film everything backwards. And then in your video editing software, you just flip the video 180 degrees and it looks just fine. So I was not clever enough to figure that out on my own, but that's the way the Lightboard works.
No, I think coming from a technical background and not knowing a lot about video production and having picked up the skill, this is something that is quite admirable. I think kudos to you for having mastered these skills, and I'd like to get a tour into your home studio that you've now built. I think you sort of it looks professional the way you put yourself out there in terms of having a clean background or the audio quality that matters. I think this goes on to show how important it is to understand that it needs more effort. It's not just about pressing a button and just rolling, right? You need to prepare yourself. You need to ensure that whatever you put in front of the camera is good, and you put your best self out there as well. So kudos to you for ensuring all these things are in place before you record, right? And other than that, I think the thing that I want to know about here, we've spoken a lot about you and your amazing things that you've done in your experience, but there's always a time when you notice somebody doing something and that's interesting, and that's something that I could learn from. And there are people that you then tend to follow and try to learn from what they are doing. So I'd like you to take this opportunity to do a few shout outs to people that you follow, the people that you admire when it comes to their work.
There are a couple of people especially that come to mind. One is Simon Phipps, who's a fairly famous evangelist, did a lot of work with Java, both at IBM and at Sun, has done a lot of work in the open source community. He is a fantastic speaker. He is compelling, he's clear. whatever he's talking about, I'm interested in it. He could be reading his insurance policy. I would show up just to listen to that or watch a video of him doing that. He's the one who gave the best description I've ever heard of a technology evangelist. He said it is someone who compellingly trivializes the complex, which I think is a great way to put it. I'm taking something very difficult and making it look really simple and compelling. The other person I would mention is another person who started out as a traditional evangelist, live in the room in front of the audience. It's a guy named David Barnes, who, again, very, very gifted speaker, but he was the one that I saw as his career progressed. He was the one who transitioned to doing a lot of videos. And that's really where I started thinking, that could be a really, a really good career skill, to know how to make videos, to know how to do something that's compelling and interesting, but still gets a technical message across. So those two guys are absolutely top notch, and I have learned a lot from watching both of them.
Fantastic, and thank you for introducing us and those who are watching to these two amazing guys. I hope we can put this message across to both of them about the kind of work that they're doing and the kind of impact that they create on people like you and me who, I mean, I don't even know them, but I'm now going to go and follow them. So
You should. Yeah.
It's great. And you also brought out a very important point there that today video has become such an important skill that could go on your resume because of the foreseeable future that we see right now. This is something that would be very important if you're in any role. If you're a product guy, if you're a sales guy, if you're a marketing guy, or you just do social media. I'm not like, I think everybody once upon a time like were looking at like photo editing or Photoshop as a skill that everybody look for in your resume, but video has become that today, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just the things my daughter can do on Instagram is amazing just with her phone. I mean, these are things that, 10 years ago, you would have needed thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Now the phone you have in your pocket does the same thing. So it's great to see that technology be so accessible to so many people, get that many more creative minds having the tools to do great things.
Absolutely. I think that brings us to the end of the episode. We've had a very, very insightful conversation with you, Doug. I think it's something that I had expectations for when I saw your profile and the work that you had done. I knew this is going to be an interesting episode, and the episode did not disappoint me. So I hope everybody else who has been watching or who will be listening to the episode on podcasting platforms like Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, that just wanted to plug this there, that we are now available on all podcasting platforms. So you'll be able to stream this episode soon on that. And I hope everybody who listens to the episode on these also enjoy it equally than the people that are watching right now live. So thank you so much for taking time out from your busy schedule and joining us today on Mad Over Videos podcast.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This was great.
I hope to stay in touch with you and get to work together sometime on projects as well. So with that, for everybody else, we'll sign off now, but we'll soon be back with another episode with an interesting guest. And until then, see you guys.